guys set? Yep. Can we all rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we all just stand, please, in honor of the tragic loss of life in Georgia this week in another school shooting? And as we've said before, if you're in the NRA or the PTA, we've all had enough of this. So we need to do something to make sure that this stops and keep our kids and our children, our most precious items, safe. So, moment of silence, please. Thank you. Welcome to the September meeting of the Philipstown Town Board. Approval of minutes, regular meeting, June 6th, 2024. Anybody? Second. All in favor? Aye. And I vote aye. Regular meeting, August 1, 2024. Second. All in favor? Aye. And I vote aye. Conservation Board.
Conservation Board did not meet in August. They'll be meeting on September 10th at 7:30.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Recreation.
The Recreation Commission met in August, and summer camp had just concluded at the end of August. Everyone's exhausted, but preschool kicked off this week, and there's nearly a full classroom. Also, the before care and after care programs on Tuesday morning and after school are available in conjunction with Haldane and Garrison schools. Other programming is launching this Saturday, including adult and senior classes, the fall soccer programs, and an upcoming senior trip, which is fully booked, to Essex, Connecticut for lunch on the Essex train and steamboat ride along the Mystic River. Lots of activity going on at Rec as usual, and thank you to the Recreation Department and staff. There is a building update. The generator was finally repaired last month. It sustained damage earlier this summer from storms that came through. And the Rec Department and staff completed a deep clean of the building following summer camp. Philipstown Park remains open for the season from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Philipstown Soccer Club is utilizing all three fields, along with the youth, football, and soccer programs. There's also, we want to thank the Philipstown Recreation Department for the pickleball court as well, which is there. Thank you to Cecily Hall, the director, and the next commission meeting is Tuesday, September 24th.
Thank you, Chief. Philipstown Hub.
Well, Philipstown Hub had a lovely memorial remembrance Luminara this past weekend and said farewell to Chris Owens, the interim executive director, but we're really delighted to have Semra here, who is the new executive director, and I would just invite Semra up. Is that okay with you, John, to introduce herself? Oh, I know it's on the agenda, but Semra Ercin is the new executive director of the Hub.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you so much, Judy. It was really great to see you on Saturday at the Luminaria. My name is Semra Ercin. I'm the new executive director at the Hub, and I'll just keep it extremely brief to say that we're really excited to create as much wonderful programming that we can and support and resources for our community of Philipstown, for anyone who's in need of services with any mental health services or substance misuse issues. We're here for you and we're here to help. So thank you so much. And if anyone needs to contact me, our doors are open. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator.
And the Hub's fun run, the 5K Family Fun Run, is on Saturday, September 28th. So please go to philipstownhub.org to register. You can run, walk, cycle, and participate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Semra. Nice to meet you. You have some big shoes to fill. I'm sure you'll do fine. Thank you. Planning Board.
Planning Board did not meet. They'll be meeting 2 weeks from tonight.
Are we the only people that meet?
Yeah.
Zoning.
Zoning did not meet in August. They did not meet in September. So their next meeting, if you're also eager, is October 14th.
Okay, thank you.
Highway.
Highway report submitted by Adam Hoteling, Highway Superintendent. August was filled with catch basin work, which still continues. Crews have been continuing mowing, grading, and potholing as quickly as possible. Heavy rains, winds, and Hurricane Debbie caused much tree damage. Crews were very busy with cleaning up from the following storm. We received many calls that are untrimmed hedges and trees and shrubs needing to be trimmed. Our crews have been trimming regularly. However, homeowners are responsible for trimming hedges around their property, especially if there's like a cross street coming in. You should really try to keep that clear, because there's some intersections that there's a lot of bushes and so forth that prevent people from seeing other cars coming in other directions. So if you have anything in your property that needs to be trimmed, please do so. Putnam Engineering performed a hydraulics study in order to repairs to be made on a culvert crossing old Manitou Road from the summer of 2023. FEMA requires this study to be done before the work can be done. Phones were pretty quiet this month. We had about 45 phone calls and emails requiring road issues and complaints. We do our best to respond on a timely manner as we ask for your patience. Roughly $21,000 was spent on vehicle maintenance for the month of August. End of report submitted by Adam Hoteling, Highway Superintendent.
Thank you, Bobby, and thank you to the highway crew. Building and land, I have nothing. Cemetery Committee?
There is a tree that is disrupting a few of the headstones, so tomorrow I'll be over there meeting one of our constituents, and we're going to discuss on tree removal there. So-
I was approached by someone in
Yeah,
reference
that's the
to
one.
a tree.
Took care of that, John.
Gotcha.
John and Dustin.
I was happy
We
to
got
give her
that.
your name.
Yeah,
Which cemetery was that?
right here, right on Mountain Avenue.
Yeah, it's, I guess the tree is pushing
Yeah.
something. So thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, agenda. Go ahead, Tara. So I would like, obviously, the bulk of you are here this evening not to see us, but to, in reference to the letter addressed from Hudson Island Fjord Trail to myself, Mayor Foley, and Mayor Windward. So I'd like to bring that up to the top of the agenda. Does anybody have a problem with that, Board?
That's fine.
No,
Okay, so before we get into any discussion, I would just like to lay out the timeline from I believe it was last April, May, don't hold me to the date. So shortly after the mayors and myself wrote to state parks opposing the trail coming into the village of Cold Spring at full scale to Dockside, there was an increase in tension between HHFT supporters and opponents that spilled over to several LTEs and articles in the local papers. I felt that a discussion with Board Chairman Chris Davis and those municipal leaders would help resolve some of the issues at hand. Claudio Marzolo graciously agreed to host us at his home. The attendees included myself, Mayor Foley, Mayor Windward, Chairman Chris Davis, and HHFT Board Member Fred Rich. And we all agreed to have Bill Mazuka, who's here this evening, attend as a trusted advocate for both groups. I don't know how you became a trusted advocate for both groups, but you were. It was unanimous. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This meeting was purely a discussion. We all are held subject to our respective boards, and neither side had the authority to execute a deal. We covered a multitude of topics and shared frank conversation and ideas. We all agreed that the projections were just that, and that no one had a crystal ball or could be certain that the Fjord Trail and the proposed measures would do to the vehicle and pedestrian traffic in our community. My understanding after 14 years on this board was the mission of Fjord was to reduce pedestrian overcrowding in Cold Spring and provide safe access to the breakneck trail system. I left the meeting that day confident that our request to build the trail from Breakneck to Little Stony Point and then pause for a period of 2 years would occur. This proposal would allow the incentive measures to draw crowds north to prove true or not and provide actual data for the community to observe. Post the pause, the decision would in fact include the municipal boards to proceed to Dockside or not. This timeline per Fjord presentation would be 6 seasons of construction, putting it somewhere around 2030, and that's if it began in 2024. We also proposed 3 smaller scale feeder trails to access Little Stony Point to be considered. A track-bound, ground level approach on either the east or west side of the tracks, sidewalk improvements on Fair Street, as well as either bike lane or sidewalk on New York State Route 9D. So if you read through the letter, the proposal from HHFT, it has the completion to Little Stony Point suddenly in 26 or 27, not 6 years, and note that the construction has not begun. There is only a west side of the track's alternate 6 included in the GGIS. We agreed to both sides. One of the unsettling statements, and I will quote, "We have no responsibility for the mitigation of the impact of the village of existing visitation." This is a complete change of the original mission of the trail, which I have witnessed on this board for 14 years. The decision to proceed to dockside will include local voices is not what was discussed. It was clearly municipal boards, and will have a seat at the table. I am not sure what local voices it would include. Our community has suffered from overcrowding and demand on our resources for decades to provide tourists ability to visit the #1 day hike in the country, to which New York State Parks has provided minimal assistance until recently. We are now being asked to absorb possibly hundreds of thousands of additional visitors to our area. When we question state parks or HHFT, we are told that this has to be to the benefits of the residents of New York State. My answer has been consistent, but it cannot be to the detriment of the town of Philipstown or the villages. So I would suggest that this board press to see that a 2-year pause occur, as well as the improvements mentioned in Cold Spring, and a binding agreement drafted to confirm that municipalities will be represented in the decision to proceed to dockside. Thank you. Before I open it up, to discussion from my board, I would like to have Bill Mazuka read a letter he sent to Mr. Davis and to the town board. If you could go with the mic, people would be here. I know you can be pretty loud when you want to be.
This is an email that I sent to Chris. I was asked by dear Chris, I was asked by Town Supervisor John Van Tassel to sit down with him and Cold Spring Mayor Kathleen Foley to discuss your letter of August 16, which I was present when you and Fred Rich met with them earlier in the year. Mayor Chris Winward of Nelsonville was unable to meet with us since she was on vacation. However, I understand that she shares the thoughts expressed by the officials. There are some discrepancies from what I understood to have been verbally agreed to at that meeting and what was stated in your recent letter to the 3 elected officials. Foremost, I believe that there had been an agreement that there would be a 2-year pause to allow for the gathering of vital data once the initial leg from Little Stony Point, Sandy Beach, to Dutchess Manor was completed before any decisions were made on a proposed link between the village of Cold Spring and Little Stony Point. I also believe that the role of the 3 local governments in the coming discussions should be more clearly defined. These elected officials should have input into any discussions and decisions that impact their constituents. In addition, I believe the east side of the track option should be as thoroughly explored as the west side track option during the GEIS process. It is hoped that the above requests for clarification and suggestions will help move the process to a successful conclusion of this difficult and divisive process. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. So Bill was our trusted advocate for both sides. I wanted Bill's opinion of the discussion that day, and as I've said earlier, we did not have the ability to make any formal agreements or decisions that day. It was just proposals, and we are all subject to our boards, including Mr. Davis and Mr. Rich that day. So that's where we stood. So, and now, Dan, I'm not sure.
I also point out that when I was asked to attend that meeting, Chris Davis was notified whether it was a problem if I was there in advance. And he was glad to have me.
We did receive a letter today from Senator Rolliston's office, and Dan, I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce your last name. Pascocello. I should know that, I'm half Italian, but yeah. So Dan, if you could read the letter from the senator, I would appreciate it.
Well, as the supervisor said, my name is Dane Pascocello, Chief of Staff to State Senator Rob Rolliston, who represents the 39th District, which includes Philipstown. This was a letter sent today to Governor Hochul, Commissioner Pro Tem Simons, and the Executive Director of HHFT, Amy Kalkala. So I'll just read, if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I'll read you the letter. Dear Governor Hochul, Commissioner Simons, and Executive Director Kalkala, my correspondence to you concerns the section of the proposed 7.5-mile fjord trail connecting the village of Cold Spring with the so-called Phase 1 portion of the linear park. With preparation of the draft generic environmental impact statement, or DGEIS, for the Hudson Highlands Fjord Trail, HHFT, project's master plan currently underway, now is the time for a full accounting of the fjord trail's potential impacts on the villages of Cold Spring and Nelsonville, as well as the town of Philipstown writ large. This accounting is provided in good faith and with my support for a future fjord trail, albeit one that is modified to contain the sizable increases to pedestrian and vehicle traffic and resulting quality of life challenges which I believe are inevitable if the current master plan proceeds without change. Shortly after being elected to represent the 39th Senate District, I traveled to the village of Cold Spring to meet with Mayor Kathleen Foley, Nelsonville Mayor Chris Winward, and representatives of the town of Philipstown. It was my first meeting with local leaders as senator-elect. This meeting in late 2022 included a discussion of the Fjord Trail proposal, as well as other local government initiatives. Since then, I have had numerous meetings, conversations, and roundtables on the Fjord Trail, not only with town and village officials, but HHFT leadership and representatives, as well as with regional leadership of state parks. Our staff has attended informational meetings in the town and has acted as a point of contact for Putnam County residents seeking better information about the trail's route, scope, and connectivity from the village of Cold Spring north to other proposed trailheads and amenities along the span. Personally, I have found all of these discussions to be helpful and would welcome more in the future. Leaders lead by listening. After more than 18 months of wide-ranging discussion and debate, 3 things have crystallized in my approach to this issue. These observations are not meant to diminish the efforts of any parties involved in developing the Fjord Trail, but rather serve as a guide for more effective policy and public-private partnerships as it relates to the trail or similar public amenities in the months and years to come. Given the imminent release of the DGEIS, now is the time to reset our approach to the Fjord Trail in the following ways. Number 1, Dockside Park, a municipal asset under the control of state parks, is not constituted to channel up to 1 million visitors per year into the Fjord Trail system and ought to be reconsidered as part of the trail's route and design. According to my conversations with the village mayors and town supervisor, a phased-in approach to the trail appears to be most prudent, beginning farther north at Little Stony Point. This is in keeping with the trail's goal of congestion management along Route 9D and prevents an untenable concentration of pedestrian and vehicle traffic along sensitive areas of Cold Springs Main Street, which terminates in a dead end. I have personally walked the narrow width of Dockside Park's proposed connector path, and it is clear to a casual observer like myself that this asset lacks the capacity to accommodate both HHFT's and Parks plans to treat it as a kind of entry point from the Cold Spring Metro North station nearby. Little Stony Point satisfies the original intent to create a north-south trail with visually impressive views of the Hudson River without channeling ever larger amounts of foot and other traffic into the heart of a small 2,000 resident village's business district. I therefore encourage HHFT and Parks to consider this compromise. Number 2, additional local input from the town of Philipstown and the villages of Cold Spring and Nelsonville is necessary. A public amenity such as the Fjord Trail should chiefly concern itself with expressing and embodying the common good. Again, I am grateful for my conversations with state and local officials, HHFT representatives, and especially concerned citizens. Nonetheless, improvements in communication to those most directly affected by the trail's currently proposed design must be made in earnest. I am a supporter of the collaborative approach to problem solving and decision making found in the charrette system. It has been used to positive effect in our own state, for instance, in guiding development in the upstate community of Skaneateles, and can, I believe, be better utilized here to encourage and amplify more voices in what I view as an unfortunate hardening of opinion on both sides of the Fjord Trail issue. Let's start by valuing local input and concerns again. Number 3, many feel the Fjord Trail is moving too fast with too little actionable information, to the detriment of our residents and their future quality of life. In the nearly 2 years I have been immersed in this matter, the whirlwind of lobbying, marketing, and PR attached to the Fjord Trail has not provided enough light beyond the heat of its sometimes acrimonious public debate. We now possess an opportunity to come back to the negotiating table, all of us, and start afresh. You cannot manage what you don't measure, and on this issue, the details matter a great deal. My office stands to facilitate these discussions so that our residents can be part of a more deliberative, inclusive process. I share your commitment to the outdoors and the stewardship of this region so that future generations of Hudson Valley residents can grow in their appreciation for nature's abundance as well as the vital importance of its continued conservation. A more deliberative approach is appropriate so that all parties involved, especially our residents living in the town of Philipstown and villages of Cold Spring and Nelsonville, have a better defined role in shaping a public amenity which will go on shaping this region for decades to come. I am grateful for your consideration of these concerns. Like you, I want the Fjord Trail to succeed and provide value for the people of our region and state. I did not arrive at the above recommendations lightly, but only after long deliberation and discussions with those on both sides of the issue. I still believe a resolution worthy of our residents and reflecting the legitimate interests of all parties can be reached by working out our differences with mutual respect and due deference to local concerns. Thank you.
We had a workshop 2 weeks ago. It's on YouTube that had a lot of people commenting on the Fjord Trail. I don't know if you've seen it, but I would strongly suggest that's a good thing for Senator Ralston as he pursues this. And also the village of Cold Spring in May had a meeting with a lot of village residents. I don't know what residents you're referencing. You know, in the letter, there are a lot of people in the village and town, 10,000 in the town of Philipstown and a lot in the village of Cold Spring, so I think to get both sides is important.
I'm sure he has, but thank you. Okay, we did meet with Senator Ralston, and we walked the trail with him. We are meeting with Assemblywoman Dana Levenberg in the near future to do the same thing. We did meet with her once. Was not the best outcome, but we are going to give it a whirl. We're going to walk the trail with her the same way we did with Senator Ralston. We also did sit with County Executive Kevin Byrne, who also agrees that a 2-year pause in construction at Little Stony Point to see if the measures do actually work the way they're intended to work. And again, I support the trail north of Little Stony Point. As a emergency services volunteer for 40 years, I've participated in many rescues at Breakneck. I think the resources will be great. I think there is some stuff that could be done currently that could really help the village and the town of Philipstown. So we also have Emergency Services Assistant Director, Ralph Falloon, here. Would you like to make any statement as far as the volume versus calls that we've seen? Come on up. Since when are you shy?
It's been a long time since I've been abused at a meeting.
We're not abused.
So anyway, yeah, so the Putnam County Bureau of Emergency Services, in partnering with Cold Spring Fire, Philipstown Ambulance, Cold Spring PD, and their mutual aid partners, will be prepared for whatever this brings. Obviously, there's concern, the larger the project, the more planning and the more services we need. In the past, prior to the state stepping up and providing services, I think the first year that we started with the stats, 22% of the fire department's overall calls were to the Breakneck Mountain region. Since then, we can thank the state. They have started putting up their resources. So we are limited. I mean, I think we're down to, don't quote me, but about between 5 and 10 calls a year now. So that's definitely great movement on their part. But this could potentially be a whole other animal. With the beauty of it is it's planned to be flat and more, more accessible, less of the major issues, but with more people on a trail, potentially becomes more calls. If you look at the east side of the county, with all the bike trails between the Putnam County Sheriff and the local agencies, they do get their fair amount of calls. You still get your medical emergencies. Believe it or not, there's actually, I hate to say it, criminal activity also that the Sheriff's Department, Town of Carmel, PD, and Kent deal with. But we are definitely here to be prepared. There is always concern, and again, the more people that will come, the more resources that we'll have to plan for. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Ralphie.
You did well. Okay, I would like to open it up to the board members. Any discussion or questions, adds?
Yeah, I just totally agree with the 2-year pause on that. It's gonna take them 7 years to get from Beacon to whoever, down to Little Stony Point. Another 2 years really isn't much of a difference. Not only that, it's gonna take a year, at least a full year, to gather data for that first year, after that first year, and then it's gonna take another year to massage that data and see what it is. So I don't see it being an issue for the 2-year pause whatsoever. I mean, it's been 14 years already, so.
What's another two?
two, so that's my opinion.
Thank you.
I would just like to say that the tourism problem, I'd like to see more of an investment in time in tourism management, like towns across the country, because I think regardless of whether or not the trail starts at Dockside, the tourists are not going to leave Cold Spring or this region. It's known around the world. You can't put the genie back in the bottles. But I do think we need a serious tourist management plan that perhaps the supervisor and the mayors can work on, and we can get some grants and fundings that we can address tourism management, because it is a lot for the towns and the villages to absorb all of this. And as I said, across the country, they're doing it in other towns. They have tourism management plans and advisory boards. I know Putnam County has a tourism bureau, but unfortunately, we don't have access to that as much to do this planning. We really do need to find funding and plan for the continuing tourists that will come here. We cannot build a wall or a gate around our village or our town.
Well, nobody's asking to build a wall or a gate, but I do think that putting this promenade, it's not a trail. We all know that it's not a trail. Putting this with starting at Dockside is nothing going to be but a bottleneck in our town. Many of us already can't really even go into town right now because of tourism, which is great, right? We have our stores, we have our restaurants. They're wonderful, but starting this trail at Dockside will just create even more of a headache, even more of a challenge to try to iron out the tourism. I read this letter a few times, and I am really hopeful that HHFT can consider moving the start to Little Stony Point and consider those who live on Fair Street. These people have bought these homes without thinking that a giant trail that's going to accompany thousands and thousands of people walking through their backyard. I highly doubt any of you who are on HHFT are living on Fair Street. So I think it's really important that you really digest this letter and you really think about the people in this community and why we're all still here and why we think that moving this out of Cold Springs Dockside, which is already a small park, which we all already know, is really important. I think you guys should really start recognizing what is important to the constituents in Philipstown. So,
I guess I would just, I would first start by saying, personally, I support trails, all right? Personally, I support connecting our community to Beacon, and then eventually to Newburgh. Newburgh's working on a trail across the lake, and then eventually to the Empire Bike Trail. I support all of those things. I'd also like to say I support accessibility, making sure it's something that everybody can use. And I do a lot of work outside of this community in communities that don't have parks. So I also just support the idea that, especially faced with climate change, we need to get people to nature, right? And people need to have that right to access nature. So I believe in all those things. At the same time, I also think that, and I know a lot of people who don't see eye to eye with me on this in conversations, believe those things too. So I'm not saying they don't. I think at the same time, the problem with lots of money, big money projects, is the vision gets really big. It happens all the time. State money, big donors, the vision gets really big, and maybe sometimes too big. And so I would just say, like, a lot of, I look at the letter that, Bill, you read, John, the advocacy you've been doing with the mayors, all of the advocacy that's been coming out of the community as being successful, in the sense that there is a letter from the Hudson Highlands Fjord Trail that it sounds like, I mean, we're kind of just hearing it now, didn't go far enough compared to the meeting you had, but we're just hearing that. But in that letter, it seems to point out a compromise position of saying, if the whole purpose of the trail is to prove that the Fjord Trail can reduce visitation in Cold Spring, let's collect the data and then pause and look at the data before we make the decision on moving beyond Little Stony Point. That was something you were pushing for, John, from the beginning, and that was successfully came out. And I think when I look at that, from where I stand, that seems to be a good compromise from the concerns people have that are worried about it. Look at the data. If the data doesn't show visitation's going down, then that's a whole different conversation. If it does, and at the same time, this letter shows, and maybe, I mean, John, I'd like to hear more about how the letter, the August 16th letter from the Fjord Trail to all of the local town councils, you know, again, where it fell short. But I guess the last thing I say, at the same time, community identified alternatives are now going to be considered in the DGEIS. And so that's important because those alternatives can never be reality if they're not included in the DGEIS. Maybe all the alternatives aren't there, so that's the point. But so that's all I wanted to say, is that I think there's a lot of people that share a lot of values, that are concerned. I don't live in Cold Spring, I live in Philipstown, so I get that people on Fair Street, there's different concerns here. But it seems like all of the advocacy done by you, by community members, has opened up at least a compromise point that makes common sense.
And I appreciate the fact that Mr. Davis and the board have acknowledged the fact that we did meet that day. It took 2 months to get anything in writing, but we did. The major differences are the 2-year pause. There is not the mention of any time frame of a pause. That is an important factor, and I think without that pause, we have no idea what the measures that are proposed are going to do for the community. That's one major difference. The timeline doesn't make a difference to me. If they can complete from Breakneck to Little Stony Point by 2027, fine, but that's when the clock should start. That's when the pause should start, and I think that's reasonable. I'm basing the 6 years, 6 seasons is what was stated. Construction things kind of are important to me, but I remember 6 years, 6 seasons of construction to get from Breakneck to Little Stony Point, and I might be wrong, but if it's done in 2 weeks, it's still, we should start the clock when it's completed. And then the improvements in the village of Cold Spring, the 3, I like to call them capillaries that get you to the artery, need to be completed. Again, that would not be a decision by this board, that would be the village of Cold Spring. But those proposals were discussed that day, and I think they're an important part of getting people safely from the village of Cold Spring to the start of the trail at Little Stony Point at a scale that's acceptable in the village of Cold Spring. And then the third real point that is important to me, that day the discussion was there will be municipal leaders at the table when the decision is made at the dockside. That is not memorialized in the letter, it says local voices. So I don't know what local voices mean, and I think we need to have a clear path to what the local voices would be. It will not be me in 2030, I can tell you that much, but it is important that the elected officials who represent the community need to be at that table. So that's the three major issues that I have.
Were there alternatives that were discussed that weren't in the?
Yes, I apologize. The one alternative, well, there was three capillaries, which I like to call them. One was Fair Street, one was 9D, a bike trail on 9D. There is parking proposed at Boscobel. If we could have a bike trail straight to Boscobel to the parking, that would be amazing. And then the third alternative was either an east side or west side of the track ground level path, similar to what you walk on when you get off at the train station and walk to Lower Main Street. So either east or west. So those are the three proposals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there anything in the word about having a train stop go to Philipstown?
There was not. There was not. I don't know. It's a great point. There is obviously a new train station going at Breakneck, but that Mikey, you brought that to me last week, that it would be great to have a train station directly at Little Stony Point. It's a state park, but it has never been discussed, so I'm not quite sure why.
There hasn't been any mention of the ADA, American with Disabilities Act tonight, but at the workshop 2 weeks ago, there was considerable discussion about compliance with the ADA, and that's really important to me, especially, I'm not the only one aging in this community. I know we have a lot of people who are aging and people who have disabilities who would like to access whatever we decide on.
I also appreciate that. And Little Stony Point in the original plan was designed to be, there was a design to make it ADA compliant. Getting into the village of Cold Spring and making it ADA compliant is very difficult in my eyes, except going on the Hudson River. We also could utilize Dockside. Again, it's not my decision, but Dockside could, on its own, become an ADA compliant park. So there is that possibility. The comments that were made last week, there was a lot of family members that made comments of the staff. I have to bring that out, but that wasn't elaborated well, but that did happen last week, so that is important to me. So I'll open it up to the public. Anybody would like to speak from the public?
I got one question.
You could come up to the mic.
Over the years, so it's my understanding that the town did not have the authority to do anything up there because it's state property, railroad property, and coast. Our town has the authority to put this hold on?
No. New York State Parks is exempt from local zoning and planning. We are in New York State is a home rule community, and at some point we will try to enact that if we need to.
So with the 2-year hold, that would be, if they want to be nice, they'll observe that?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Steve, am I answering that correctly?
I'm not sure what the question was. Can you override state parks?
No, do we have any permitting authority over New York State Parks?
You do not.
Thank you.
For park purposes, if that's what they're building for.
Anyone else? Come on up there.
Patty D'Amato, 13 Stone Street, Cold Spring, and I've spoken before. I feel hopeful tonight for the first time. I feel that we've been heard in different places, but I just have to address one comment, Ms. Farrell, about the idea of building a wall around the community. That's not my purpose. You may think other people want that. For me, it's a matter of logistics. This trail is going to be very popular. It's going to bring more people. It's going to bring more cars. We can't handle it. We're going to have more buses, we're going to have more tours, and we're not going to be able to control it. So I don't want to prevent people from coming here. I met somebody from Israel this week who was going hiking up at Breakneck. I've met people, as I've said before, from all over the world That's not the issue. It's purely logistical and what it's going to do to our village and our town. Thank you.
Hi. Heidi Wendell, 29 Secor in Nelsonville. I'm worried that I'm not hearing in the discussion anybody speaking for nature. I mean, I really think there should be an advocate at the table during these discussions, like there is in family court who speaks on behalf of an infant for nature, which doesn't seem to have a voice here. I mean, the Bull Hill is a living place. It's well acknowledged that incredibly heavy human traffic in a natural place destroys the habitat for creatures that we're supposed to be protecting. So I really hope that when this discussion goes on, there's someone to speak on behalf of wildlife. The top of Bull Hill has beautiful habitat for scarlet tanagers, big, very lizards, huge snakes. None of that can exist on eroded trails that are basically being trampled all day long by an overabundance of visitors. It doesn't have to do with wanting to keep anyone out. It has to do with protecting nature, in my opinion. That's my view, and I really think that when these discussions go on, there should be somebody assigned, and I don't know who it would be in this community, because I feel like all our usual people that represent the needs of nature that so many of us feel so strongly about are not necessarily speaking up in this case. So we need somebody who's going to be an advocate for nature at the table. Somebody. I really hope that that happens, and I hope everybody who cares about this a lot will speak up about that. There should be somebody at the table, not state parks, but somebody who is going to reflect the needs of nature, which includes quiet.
I just want to make a quick comment, which is, I think part of the difficulty here, and I'm going to speak as someone who thinks of myself as someone who loves nature, right? And I think that there's a difficulty here, which is when you look at the trends of people that are coming from New York City and are not going to stop no matter what, even if we're not here and no trail's ever built, that's going to continue. And no plan, as we've all seen, is not good for nature. Funneling people up here on an increasing level with no plan for them and setting them out onto the trails that are unmanaged, that is not good for nature either. And so I think there is a compromise here, which is saying, okay, we know we're dealing in a reality where we are outside of a metropolis that's only growing and people are moving up the valley and they're not going to stop. All right, all of the trends show that they're not going to stop, and without any plan, and maybe this plan went too far, but without any plan, leaving it status quo, that's not good for nature either. And we're not going to get to a point where it's just pristine nature and it's quiet in the woods all the time. And so we have to be saying, okay, if the status quo is not acceptable and not good, then what's the alternative? And if this alternative is way too big and not good either, then what is the best solution there? And I think that's what we're trying to all get to, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I have responses to that, Jason, but I don't
Please.
think it's appropriate.
Or we can have a coffee.
More is going to be worse.
More is coming no matter what. More is coming no matter what.
We need management. We need management, tourist management.
So, no, but Heidi, to this point, I mean,
There's permits, we can avail ourselves of what other communities have done to protect nature.
I agree with you 100% that if you're going to have parking lots, that there can be reservation systems that say we're full, go somewhere else. But I'm saying if we're talking about this letter that was brought up tonight, with both the discussions that Supervisor Van Tassel's had and the Fjord Trail of saying, okay, we're going to pause, wait until the Breakneck Connector is complete, the Metro North Breakneck Ridge train station is complete, the main entrance to the trail and additional parking and the new visitor center at Dutchess Manor is complete. We're going to look at John's suggestion, 2 years of data to see if it's pulling people away and if it's actually being successful at being a solution. And if it's not, then you have the discussion. To me, that is, I mean, and it's what you push for, that seems to be a good solution.
And I think part of my advocacy for the trail north of Little Stony Point is it will keep more people out of the woods and on the purposeful trail. So that I think needs to be a part of the discussion.
John, I don't know how much time you spend on the top of Bull Hill. It's very severely eroded. There's erosion coming into the vernal.
I hike
at the
Fire
top of
Tower
the hill.
weekly, right?
I mean, there's no discussion about repairing that trail, preventing the erosion.
That's a whole other discussion,
Well,
Wendy.
it
That's
should be
not
part of this
here.
discussion. If people are coming up here to experience nature, we're giving them the nature of trashed out version of nature in the first place.
There's a limit. There's a limit what can be handled by the trails. There's no doubt about it. So, and the state has closed Breakneck on occasion because there was too many people on the
What
trails.
I'm asking is that there be an advocate for nature at the table.
I would suggest you petition the governor and New York State Parks with that request. Thank you. Yes, sir.
David Lindbergh, 2 Crown Street, Nelsonville. You mentioned that there are a couple of discrepancies in the letter between that and the meeting that you had, that the letter doesn't mention the 2-year hiatus, and that it refers to local voices rather than local officials.
Right.
So what that makes me think of is how much power and how much recourse do local officials and residents have in negotiations with HHFT and Parks and the state?
We're basically at their mercy. We have petitioned. This is probably the largest project that the town of Philipstown has seen, and our planning board, our zoning board, and our conservation board have no say over the process. Am I correct, Steve? Correct. So that's the part that we feel vulnerable about. We were hoping that New York State Parks would partner with us to assist us in assuring that the community is comfortable with the scale and the size of the development. So that's why the original letter from the 3 of us went to New York State Parks, which we have yet to receive a formal answer from.
Is there anything that can be done to enhance our power of negotiation?
I'm not aware of anything, but other than public pressure, the community reaching out to the governor and New York State Parks, that's our avenue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
On that lines, I was wondering, John, if maybe you could ask council to explain so we all have a grasp of home rule and what that tool brings to the board and to the villages.
Steve?
Well, under the municipal home rule law, the municipalities are allowed to enact local laws which override New York State laws of general applicability. So you can, for example, enact zoning, which would otherwise not be allowed. You can change timelines for certain procedures, which municipality undertakes. What you can't do, though, is override the state's jurisdiction or anything in the New York State Constitution. And under New York State law, the Department of Parks governs development of any state-owned parklands. If the Parks Department wanted to do something like come into Philipstown and put up a monopole or a generating station, then you might be in a position to say, you would be in a position to say that your zoning governs, and you could, there's a procedure to determine the extent to which it governs. But if it's a park lands and it's being developed as parks, you have no say in how it's developed. Officially. Unofficially, of course, you're residents of the state, you're a political subdivision of the state, you have an opportunity to say what you want, you have an opportunity to voice objections, but legally, can you compel the state to do something else? No, you cannot. You can challenge the state procedures, say that they didn't complete SEQRA properly or something along those lines. Certainly the town would have standing to do that if it came to it. But in terms of saying to Parks or someone acting on behalf of the state, no, you can't develop, municipal home rule will not help you.
Thank you. Yes, Dave?
A few comments on the letter. First of all, I don't know if everyone understands what the breakneck connector is. Does everyone on the board understand where that is? Because breakneck connector is Breakneck Mountain and the foot of Breakneck Mountain. It's not the shoreline trail, which goes from Breakneck Mountain to Little Stony Point. So reference in the letter says they're not building that either. They're saying what they're going to build is a breakneck connector up to Dutchess Manor and do that section first. So I think that should be made really clear, because I'd be all for that if they postpone that section, and I think everyone else, a lot of people would, the section of Shoreline Trail going from Stony Point to Breakneck Mountain, because that is not the connector. Regarding the amount of people, I keep hearing this, that it's only going to get worse, it's only going to get worse, and we really don't know that. Maybe the trend is going that way, or maybe it might be that way, but one way that you don't discourage people is by building double the amount of parking spaces. You don't add twice as many parking spaces. And this is coming from a supposed environmental group, the Scenic Hudson, which I've always respected, that is now willing to drive hundreds of thousands in their own analysis to our area by car, because they've also stated that most visitors will come by car. So all of these cars that they're driving to the area, somehow we just forget about the effect of that on the environment and just allow that to happen. There's been no control by the state to do any controls for hikers or for people arriving by car in our parks, and it's done all over the country. Their answer is it's very porous. And that's true. Our park is porous. There's stretches of it. But how many people that are hiking and getting off those packed trains from New York City are going to venture off somewhere that they have no idea where they are? Some people will. But most people are going to actually, abide by what the laws are. I mean, any law that's passed, any law that we do, from stop signs to speeding, people are not all going to listen to that. So to just throw that out, to just throw out the idea of if there's any kind of control is just not responsible, and it should be examined. The other part about the, waiting until it's built, and this is why I bring up this section of Shoreline Trail, is because if the Shoreline Trail is built, and that's included in what they're saying here, which isn't what's represented in that letter, if that's included and they build the whole Shoreline Trail from Breakneck Mountain to Little Stony Point, this is going to be advertised in the Times. It's going to be advertised in all the hiking magazines. It's going to just draw hundreds of thousands of people that would not be coming here. And this is the worry about, that a lot of people have. We're not trying to build a wall. People would like to villainize us. It's an easy thing to do. Try to villainize the people that are opposing this. And that's not true. We're not trying to build a wall. We're not trying to keep people out. There's not people down there throwing stones or having signs or squirt guns or anything on the people that are coming into this village. We've coped with this for 20 years pretty much, and we're still coping with it. So this trail was supposed to be something that would safely get people to Breakneck Mountain, and there is a way to do that without building in the water and without going through Dockside Park and without disrupting the whole village. The people that are coming into the village, the people that are coming to the trail, whether it starts at Stony Point or in Cold Spring, are going to be the same, maybe slightly different, but they're going to have to drive through the town because there's only one thoroughfare, and that's to go to the center of everything, which is Dutchess Manor, where they're going to have a shuttle service, but the cars have to drive to get there. They don't miraculously appear or go around 9 and come from the other side of the, the other side of the county. So when you're thinking about this, you have to think of the difference between going from Stony Point to Cold Spring and the difference from that and going from Stony Point to Breakneck. There is no difference. It'll be an attraction. And if I could just take a little bit more time, I think, John, you remember, and I don't know who else was on the board, I think it was in 2017, when all of a sudden Indian Brook Road and Indian Brook Falls all of a sudden went to social media and I believe the New York Times. And the whole place was a madhouse. It couldn't be controlled. And right now we can't even get to it, and there's no parking there. And that's what you have to expect. COVID also gave us a clue of what to expect. You know, it drove hundreds of thousands of people here, and they were parked all over the village. If you were in the village and were witness to that, it was crazy. And fistfights and everything else were breaking out, actually. So I think you need to consider, I think you definitely have to make sure that what they're talking about, the breakneck connector, whether that's the shoreline trail or it's just breakneck connector, because there's two different things. And if you just do the breakneck connector and then take data from that, that's not going to really tell you anything, because that's not the attraction. People aren't going to be drawn to a little footbridge that goes to the bottom of Breakneck. They're going to be drawn to a 10-foot wide multi-purpose track that's going along the shoreline. Thank you.
Dave, can I ask you about Fair Street? Because I did live on Fair Street for 5 years. I know residents of Fair Street who've talked to me about the trail. Fair Street is inundated with tourists currently. How is that going to be managed? I mean, you were mayor, you're a former mayor.
Well, when I was mayor, there was nobody knocking the door down talking about that or having a problem with that. They just weren't. Nobody.
You don't live on Fair Street, but we do have residents who live there who say it's a nightmare already.
And what do you say to when we're going to shift it over to the people on Fish Street and Market Street?
Well, there has to be a solution. I agree.
I know, I don't have that solution, but you don't just shift it from one place to the other, you know, saying one is better than the other. There's residents that live on those other areas of the village that, you know, would like their privacy also and wouldn't want a trail going through their backyard. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Stephanie Skiptunis, and I am a resident of Fair Street. I live at 88 Fair Street, and I have lived there for about 6 years, and I have witnessed an inundation of hikers, not just hikers walking up the road that's very dangerous because there is no sidewalk. It is crumbling into the estuary. And I've witnessed cars try to park in illegal spots halfway off the road in our driveway, up on top of rocks in front of our house. It's a mess, and it wasn't until the police started ticketing pretty heavily that it started to recede a little bit, but it is really an issue. And I believe that the idea of a compromise where the trail begins or ends at Little Stony Point and then goes north makes sense. I too believe in trails. I like trails. I want to walk on trails, and I think that it will be good for nature actually to have trails that are maintained, unlike Fair Street, which is a mess. And if you've ever walked down Fair Street, it's embarrassing, quite frankly, that is what this beautiful town and this beautiful waterfront area looks like. And it's not going to look beautiful if there is a big boardwalk that is sticking out into the river along the train tracks. So I think that working with a compromise is really beneficial to everybody. I believe in trails. I like that idea. But starting the trail in the village is only going to choke Fair Street and Church Street and Garden Street and each one of the streets more and more. So taking that start somewhere else I'm in favor of that. So.
Come on up.
I'm very nervous, but y'all are doing great. Okay, so this was the letter that I was going to read tonight, but it's very long. So I'm just going to go off the cuff. Right.
Send that
So
to us.
my name is Rosie McGuire Weiss, and this is my husband, Gordon Weiss.
Hello, hello.
And our neighbor here, Mikey, is here. There she is back there, who was raised in the house that she lives in. She's been there for over 50 years. We're just 8 years in. We spent all of our money, our hard-earned, back-breaking, blood, sweat, and tear money to buy that house on the corner of Fish and North. Yeah, big price tag for a couple of actors, right? Okay. I want to say that from the get-go, when I heard that there was a possibility that behind my yard there would be a trail where there would be tourists, hikers, you name it, whoever, being, you know, whatever, coming back there, I sobbed. At the first meeting that was at the kayak place, I left there so upset I could barely be in my body. This nightmare for us and Mikey, right? It is an ongoing nightmare. You don't live on Fish Street. The lady who just said you don't live on Fair Street. The alternative alignment number 6 is a horrible idea. If I can see you, you can see me. So is the solution to put up a big black screen like they did over whatever, what it was, what's the thing where they put up the big black screen? So that, yeah, is that really a solution? No, it's not. 300 mature trees, we counted them, not even the little tiny ones or the medium-sized one. 300 mature trees would be cut down. Miss Nature, I wrote a whole thing in this. Let's call her Miss Nature, I like it.
You certainly don't seem nervous anymore.
Well, I am, can't you tell my voice is like,
Relax.
So, no, I mean, 300 trees cut down, all the birds, everything from the tiniest, teeniest, tiniest to the biggest turkey vulture, every small little tiny animal, that will be gone. And it will, as to quote our mayor, Kathleen Foley, will forever change the view shed. And that, to me, is unacceptable. I did not spend the money that we spent on that house to lay down and say, oh, that's okay. It's not okay. So what solutions can be made? Compromises. Why is there not a round table of people from Cold Spring, us regular folk, to sit down with you guys, to sit down with Mayor Foley, to a round table, and somebody to take notes so that we can, everybody gets to have a voice and a say in this. I am inspired by you, Mr. Morandi, because I wasn't going to speak. I was too freaking scared. But I was like, well, he's off the cuff, so I can't too. Well, all right. So that's pretty much my say. We are absolutely opposed to alternative alignment number 6. And I have spoken to HHFT people, and honestly, I don't get that they care. That they really care. How you live and have that behind your house. And you tell me if you would like it.
Thank you. Thank you. Would anybody like to follow that? Mike.
I just want to say thank you for all the effort that you put into this. Especially thank you to Senator Rawlston. I know his representative just left, but I mean, that is an incredibly powerful statement that you read tonight. I wanted to ask Jason a quick question. Yeah. Climate change and this trail, how do you mesh the two? Because it seems to me that building along the banks of the Hudson River when the water level is going to rise up to 8 feet, just, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, if you're asking me specifically, I'm in favor of building a trail along the Hudson River. I am in favor of building a trail that can connect Beacon to Newburgh to the Empire State Trail. So I would just say, like, no matter what, if we're going to the future we're going to, and we can have arguments about parking cars, and that is all true, we also have to invest in ways for people to get around in local communities, like the one we're living in, that don't involve cars, right? And so I think, in my mind at least, that's how it fits. And I also think that to get people to fight climate change in a much bigger way than we are right now, people are really going, some people are going to disagree with this statement. We need more people who love nature and can gain access to nature. And I think that is part of how we build people who are willing to stand up for nature. And so I think getting people out into nature is important, yeah.
I think it brings in Heidi's point too, that the voice for nature and for climate change and everything else, that's really being overlooked here, because to put a concrete promenade along the Hudson River that is going to be flooded in the next few decades, it just, to me, maybe I'm crazy, it doesn't make sense. Second, you brought up the influence of big money, big donors in this project that has gone from something 15 years ago that was very homegrown to something now that is very, I'll use the word Disney-esque because it's designed to bring in the maximum amount of people and to maximize the visitor experience and that kind of thing. I guess I just wanted to reiterate that because there's certain people in the room that I think need to hear that. That big money in this project is really what is driving it and what needs to really, I guess, come around to change it. Because until those voices and those influences wake up to the need for I guess, negotiation that you're trying to push, nothing's going to change because, as Mr. Gaba points out, we have no standing to change it. And I guess the other thing is this 2-year moratorium that you're pushing. Again, there's new faces in the room since the beginning of the meeting, so maybe we can ask them straight up why that didn't make it to the letter or what their stance is.
I don't think we should go to that point at this point, so thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on this? We do have a meeting that we have to run, so let's wrap it up quickly. Anybody else like to speak? Mikey?
I would just like to say I live right next to the road, and I'm just wondering why.
Wait, Mickey.
You?
I don't want to.
Okay.
I was just wondering why they only put this alternate 6 in this GE.
Well, we have asked for the east side of the tracks as well, so we'll see what happens.
About a stop from running from the train rather than having to get off, have to go from New York City on the other side, come through the tunnel, underneath the ground, and then it would go down.
Right, the argument would be the reverse on the way back, though. So we're pushing to have that considered as well, the east side of the tracks, so. Okay.
I'm going to push that.
Go ahead. Thank you. All right, so we are going to proceed with our meeting. So we do have business to do, so if everybody's going to get up and leave at this point, if you could go out quietly so we can proceed with our meeting. Thank you.
Please don't congregate in the hallway down here. If you're going to talk, please
Go
go outside,
outside.
please.
Don't. I can't hear you.
Please. Yeah, sure. And yeah, anybody who didn't have a comment, who didn't read their comment, can send it in,
Yeah,
right, Bob?
please send in any additional. We got to do a meeting.
Yeah.
What's that?
Should we be the only one?
Definitely. Exactly.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
I don't understand how you could possibly be wearing the black hat on this. Mr. Environmentalist. Oh, I see. What's the old saying, a heretic is bad and apostate is worse?
Okay, folks, we got a meeting to go.
Where did Judy go?
Take care, sir.
Thank you. They're bitching a little bit now, but Duchess Manor apparently has some historical value to that land.
He was the chairman. Okay, let's continue with the agenda.
So we already did the introduction of the new hub director, Semra. The next thing on the agenda is a resolution authorizing, subject to permissive referendum, the reconstruction of the Cortlandt Lake Dam in and for the town of Philipstown, should say Putnam County, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $125,500 and authorizing the issuance of $125,500 bonds of said town to pay the town's share of the cost thereof. This is a roll call vote.
So this is a joint project with the town of Philipstown, the town of Cortland, and the town of Putnam Valley. We have the lion's share of it at $125,000. I think the total, if you read through the proposal, I think it's like $180,000. I'm not 100% sure, but this is necessary repairs to the Cortlandt Dam. We did just complete paying for a major capital improvement there of the dam over a 10-year period. I can't see what the total is for the project, but this is our share, $125,500. It's mostly sprawling of concrete, as well as some tree growth that's in the spillway. So can I get a motion to accept the resolution, which is subject to permissive referendum for the reconstruction of the Cortlandt Dam? Second.
Second.
Councilwoman Farrell.
I vote aye.
Councilman Angel.
Aye.
Councilman Flaherty.
Aye.
Councilwoman Cotter.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you.
Next is a resolution granting a license to Trick Window Productions LLC for the use of the Highway Department property as a site for launching drones to secure footage for use of their motion picture film, subject to terms and conditions listed in said license agreement, and this is Nunc Pro Tunc.
So this took place last weekend. There was some filming going on. They used the town highway garage for a launch site for the drones, and it was overseen by the Putnam County Sheriff's Department. Can I get a resolution authorizing, granting a license to Trick Windows Products?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And I vote aye. Thank you.
Next is a resolution authorizing the Town of Philipstown Justice Court to apply for a JCAP grant in the 2024-2025 grant cycle for up to $30,000.
So we have been very successful with these. We had a bathroom installed in the back for the judges, which is mandated by New York State courts, believe it or not, that they have their own bathroom. The locks and the doors that come into this room, the bulletproof door that's at the pay office is also a result of this, and we did get some carpeting for the old courthouse. So we have been very successful with this. So can I get a motion to approve the Town of Philipstown Court to apply for a JCAP grant for the 2024 season for $30,000?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? And I vote aye. Thank you.
Next is a resolution accepting the proposal from Colliers Engineering and Design for professional construction inspection services for proposed New York State DOT commercial boring for the installation of a 2-foot HDPE water line for the Garrison Landing Water District, and this again is Nunc Pro Tunc.
Okay, so this was part of the trenching and boring under Route 9D. In the original proposal to New York State DOT, Ron had his own agency as the inspecting agency, which is not acceptable for New York State DOT. So we had to hire a third-party inspector. So this is the one, they did send out requests. This is who we got. So can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Next is a resolution approving the cemetery tour license agreement between the Town of Philipstown and the Putnam History Museum to allow for guided tours of the cemeteries listed on the specific dates as noted in said agreement, subject to the conditions listed in said agreement, and this is a roll call vote.
Is it going to be on Halloween? Do you know?
No, it's the weekend before Halloween. There's two. I think it's the 19th
Great
and the
tour.
25th,
I
yeah.
might pay for that one. So this was proposed by Putnam. So Steve, you reviewed the contract. Any comments?
Yeah, this is not commercial at all. I mean, they're going to charge a fee for the tours, but it's very historically oriented. They have a write-up, I don't know if you saw that they sent along as far as, you know, stating the historical significance of not only the persons, but the groups of persons interred in the cemetery. We have every assurance that it's going to be conducted in a respectful manner. If there are mourners or an interment at the cemetery or something like that, they're going to keep their distance. There'll be no food or drink in the cemetery. I just don't see a problem with, and they have insurance, of course, so I don't see a problem with this.
So we are covered, that's the key, if somebody is interested.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, could I get a motion to approve the cemetery tour license? Second.
Second.
Councilwoman Farrell.
I vote aye.
Councilman Angel.
Aye.
Councilman Flaherty.
Aye.
Councilwoman Cotter.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Next is a discussion regarding the possibility of the formation of committees to address the issues of oil storage facilities and conservation subdivisions in the town code.
Okay, so we currently have a moratorium on oil storage facilities within the town of Philipstown, which I believe we've renewed once. We can renew it
It runs through December, I believe.
for December, then we are allowed to do it one more
That's
round of 6 months. So we have solicited a couple quotes from professional agencies to assist us with this, and the quotes are completely out of reach for the town. It was $80,000 or $90,000 or more for any of the professional agencies to do it. So we came up with a proposal to do some of the groundwork with a ad hoc committee formed from within the community. We have several local professionals and representatives on our special use boards that are looking, that are willing to participate. I actually asked the director of each of the special use boards to give us one name from each board to assist us with this. It's not only the zoning for that, but it would also address the figuring for conservation subdivisions for net use of property. So I know we've spoke briefly about this one, so I'm in favor of doing an ad hoc committee. There are a few names that have been proposed to myself from the Planning and Conservation Board. I also did get an offer from the Hudson Island Land Trust that they have somebody interested in being on the board who is also a land use attorney, so it could be very handy. So we would need a representative from the town board. I know, Bobby, you're interested. Anybody else interested to sit on this committee?
Is this just for oil storage?
Oil storage and for the conservation.
Oh, they're one committee for both?
One committee to change the zoning for both.
I would be.
Okay, great. It's one committee to address both zoning issues. The conservation subdivision change was brought to our attention by the planning board. They feel that the calculations don't work well, so they're looking to change it. So I will ask the planning chair as well if he would participate. So Judy, you are interested in
Yes.
being part of the committee? Bobby, you as well? So we can solicit names. If you each could come up with a name of somebody from the community that you think would participate. We'll set up a schedule for the month of October for a kickoff meeting. Steve, would you think you would be present at the kickoff meeting, or?
Depends on what you want to do at the kickoff meeting.
Well, I think it needs to be laid out as to what exactly the
I'll
purpose.
be happy to come.
So, okay,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
we'll make sure you're available.
We'll have to coordinate my schedule, but.
Great, okay, so we'll shoot for an October date.
I definitely think Steve needs to be part of that kickoff.
Actually, when we pick dates later, we can pick a date in October.
I didn't look at the October schedule yet,
All right, well, we're gonna have to figure that out.
because I have to know when court and stuff it, you know.
Well,
and
we
there's
could,
certain-
that's probably a small enough group that they could meet in the conference room downstairs. so
Then that's not a
that
problem.
would
If they
work.
meet in the conference room, then it's not an issue.
Yeah, it should be, the conference room should be fine.
Anybody else have any input on this?
The only thing I would say is some people have talked about including in conservation subdivision. People are starting to look at how to incorporate that with affordable housing or housing that is affordable. So I just think that's a good idea someone had mentioned. So.
Anyone else? Nope. Okay. So we'll look to start that committee up at some point in October based on scheduling, so.
So next on the agenda is to schedule any workshops or meetings.
Oh, look at that.
We have, our regular monthly meeting is scheduled for October 3rd. We do have to schedule a workshop within the next week to week and a half to discuss the Hudson Highland Reserve
Right, because that got
issue.
canceled yesterday, so yeah, we need
Yes.
to get that.
And that, from my understanding, that needs to be done before the planning board meeting on the 19th. So that means you either have next week on the 11th or the 18th, and that's the night before the planning board meeting. I don't know what you,
I would really encourage us to meet on the 11th, so that's next Wednesday.
but,
What's that?
oh, that is right. The conservation board moved their meeting to the 11th because they had an issue. You could meet on the 10th, a Tuesday.
We could. We have enough time to post that.
I mean, I know you want Steve there. I mean,
Yes,
I don't know
Steve,
if you want to consult with him.
Thursday, the 10th?
Tuesday.
Of the 10th of October?
No, we're talking September. We're talking next week.
Next week. Tuesday. Yeah, no, nope. I'm in
What
Cornwall.
about Thursday? Could we do Thursday?
Thursday, the 12th?
Yeah.
Thursday, the 12th, I'm free.
Does that
You
work
wanna
for
do a
anybody else?
workshop for Thursday the 12th?
September 12th?
Yeah, that would be
7:30,
next
7
week's,
o'clock?
7 o'clock, 7:30.
7:30?
7:30.
10th.
And we can post
No,
that.
the
It's enough.
12th.
12th, I'm sorry.
It's enough time to post. So we'll be meeting with Hudson Highland Reserve in reference to the town of Philipstown holding their conservation easement.
Are we gonna have a fee schedule by then?
Well, we hope so.
And then do you want to set up the October meeting that you were just talking about, the workshop for the ad hoc committee? So October, you want to shoot for it to like a Wednesday like we normally do, or?
to make sure Steve's available. Are you
I'm not available on the 9th or the 23rd as far as Wednesdays go. Other Wednesdays, I'm free.
Okay, so there's the 2nd, the 16th.
Let's shoot for the 16th. That'll give us enough time to get the names
To get the
together.
committee.
The 16th of what?
And that will be after our October meeting.
Yeah, 10:16, 7:30 PM.
Yep,
And that's the kickoff meeting with the ad hoc committee.
ad hoc zoning committee.
Okay.
This is September 16th?
No, this is October 16th.
Oh, okay.
So just to,
Well, I just
I
wanted, because I
can't do
thought,
October 16th.
I thought they wanted to have this thing done before
Have
the
auditors
planning
in
board.
town.
So, just, this is, October 16th isn't, that's the ad hoc committee for the zoning and
Okay,
stuff.
okay, got it. I'm mixed up.
September 12th is the conservation
got it.
easement thing, yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
When are they
I
planning
will.
to meet?
That 16th, ad hoc committee would meet on the 16th.
In the evening, or,
Yes.
yeah, I could do like 7:30,
Yeah.
is that when?
Yeah, this,
no, no.
October 16th at 7:30, September 12th at 7:30, and then the regular monthly meeting, October 3rd.
Okay.
So next on the agenda is the Code Enforcement Monthly Report. This is for August. Fees collected, $50,327.49. There were 28 total permits issued. There was one new, one or two family dwelling. There were 3 additions, alterations, or repairs to residential buildings, 24 all other permits. There were 37 certificates of occupancy. 1 stop work order was issued. There were 3 inspections of public assembly and 3 inspections of commercial occupancies. And that's it. Next is any other business that may come before the town board.
Just a couple of quick things. School's open now, just be careful driving slow. Watch out for the little children, especially here in the village and out in the rural areas as well. A lot of school buses. I saw something on the news today. There's quite a few people who do pass school buses when they're stopped. It was amazing the numbers that they posed, so just be very careful. I want to say that. Also, on October 5th, we have what they call a sweet potato dig.
Yes.
Okay? So I just want to bring people's attention, this is the property we donated to Davern's Farm, across from the library down there, is planted sweet potatoes, so they're looking for volunteers. So anyone like to volunteer, please do so. Just go to sweetpotatodig.com, and you can register yourself to help. So anyone that would be, October 5th starts around between, I think, 10 o'clock, he's looking at maybe 9 or so. So there's quite a few people already signed up, so the more the merrier.
They need a lot of manpower. I'm hoping to incorporate the town highway trucks to move some of these stuff in the loader, but I'll coordinate that with Adam unless you want to reach out
Yeah, I
with
can
Adam.
reach out to Adam.
I know
That'd be great.
they're expecting 30,000 or 40,000 pounds
Pounds, sorry, not
of
tons.
sweet potatoes. Stacy sent me a picture of one. It was just giant. So they're growing really well. They're growing. So if you have time, that date was picked because Haldane football has a bye week, so I'm hoping to get the whole football team there, as well as the other sports teams to help. They said they need a lot of muscle, and because you literally have to pull these things out by hand. There's not a machine to do
I
it.
was down here today talking to them. They have a process. They're gonna have certain people digging them up, have certain people gonna put them in piles. They got a process that
Right.
they have that's gonna work, so.
Let's hope. But we need
But
people.
we just
They
need
people. So,
Okay.
and I believe there's going to be music and food trucks, from what I understand. Let's because we'll confirm that. But I believe that was all included. So
Very nice.
John, I apologize. I just realized I am out the night of October 16th.
okay. So you have what was the one? Then you had one.
October 9th, I'm available, October 23rd, and October 30th.
23rd work because that's later in the month.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, October 9th doesn't work for me.
23rd is
So the
23rd's better.
23rd?
23rd. Yep. That's for the ad hoc committee.
One other thing I'd like to bring up, I'd like to thank the Highway Department. There's something that the county originally should have been doing, but we did it ourselves. The bridge that crosses over East Mountain Road South, there's 3 tubes in that bridge. One of the tubes has been clogged for many, many years. We tried to get the county to do it, they couldn't, so Adam, I'd like to thank Adam and his team. They went, got the permit, and they cleaned that up just the other day, so I want to give them a little thank you.
If you remember Hurricane Irene, that was a
That
pinch
was-
point that
it
sent
was.
water
Sent
down
water
Route
that
9.
got Well, that and that house, that first house you cross over got completely flooded. So thank you to Adam and his team for taking the initiative to get that done.
Yes, thank you.
And I'd just like to announce the Castle River Run is in October, the 3rd week. They're looking for town, of course, volunteers, and anybody in the community would like to volunteer for the Castle River Run to benefit the Philipstown Recreation
Or to run.
Department, or to run. Please contact the Philipstown Recreation Department and put your name on the list.
What's the date?
I believe it's the 3rd week in October, October
Oh, I thought you
20th.
said October 3rd.
October, not
Third week.
The third.
3rd week in
Oh,
October.
I'm sorry, I thought you
Yes.
said October
Yeah.
3rd.
3rd week in October, so.
Anything else on the board?
Right, so is October, no, this is so refreshing our memory, or my memory. So next October meeting is when we start to see draft budget, is that when we start budget, and
Then
then?
we'll start that process. Sue will be
Start
sending.
doing it.
Say it's sent.
I just want to know, Megan, I just want to know, I want to have fresh in my head.
Great, thanks. I'll be up all
Is this
night.
a resolution that we were going to
Yeah,
discuss?
we're gonna hold.
We're holding
We're
it
gonna
down.
hold on it, yeah. We're gonna hold on the additional resolution. We need to process some other options, so. Thank you. Anything from the audience? Legislator Montgomery.
I have some things relevant to Philipstown happening over at the county. I don't usually, and if you ever, I didn't realize that this was a problem with the culvert on East Mountain Road, and if you ever have that problem, but you,
Anyway, I don't want to get.
yeah, but the county has successfully helped out the highway department in Philipstown in painting lines on the roads, and Graymore, it was in need of a lot of work, and the county stepped up, and actually Adam, the county did the stripes, but your department fixed a lot of it, and they're so grateful. So I love that collaboration. Also, October 5th is Household Hazardous Waste Day, so you can drop off your waste and they'll go pick tomatoes, because you'll have room in your car to pick the tomatoes. October 5th at Fawnstalk Park from 8:30 to 12:30. Registration is required at 845-808-1390, or just go on the Health Department's website.
Canopus parking lot?
Yes.
So you go into Canopus Beach lot?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So I was approached by residents, and this is stuff the supervisor is aware of, maybe not the rest of the board, but residents of Continental Village community and members of the Park District approached me for help with the lake, the playground, and the overall Park District. Unfortunately, I've never seen county funding for specific districts, for municipalities, for town projects, other than the one-time sales tax and ARPA funding that we allocated in 2023. But I was able to bring Assemblywoman Levenberg into the conversation early on. She actually attended 2 meetings. Senator Rollison's office, his staff attended the second meeting. And I'm so thrilled and grateful that she offered in good faith $100,000 in CREST funding for the Park District. Specifically, probably it's going to be for the playground. And if you guys know about CREST funding, it has to be spent by the town first, and then we'll get reimbursed by the state, by Assemblywoman's office. In other areas in help for this district, you were all aware of the New York State tax exemption for firefighters and EMS workers. For some reason, Lakeland School District just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't listen to the fire department. So I attended a school board meeting with the fire department and sort of just held their feet to the fire. And they did pass 2 weeks ago a 5% exemption. Unfortunately, it wasn't for the full 10%, but I was really happy to see that happen, and we'll continue to advocate because they really should be getting the 10%. Tuesday night, the legislature voted in favor of creating a rescue task force. This was an initiative driven by the fire departments in other districts, but our fire chiefs are participating. I spoke to them all. They were all in favor of it. I just wanted to get a pulse before I took the vote, and everybody's in favor of it. It's an ongoing conversation. The legislature just, I think it was sort of a courtesy vote to say we're happy to discuss this. And I just left a county meeting before I came here, and whoa, I was surprised. I didn't realize this was going on. But I was really excited about what was happening with the county social service department. We got an update from the new commissioner of social services, and there's so much great work happening there. Including talk, and I know it's just talk and talk takes a long time, about creating the CRT team, which is already in existence, but having a team here in Philipstown. It's the response team. They've engaged over 415 people since February, and these are critical calls that come to the 911 center. And the 911 center sometimes dispatches this team of social workers and clinical workers along with the police department. They're talking about training all local police departments in mental health first aid, 85% probably by 2025, and also the crisis intervention training. Actually, that's what 85% of the deputies will be trained in crisis intervention training by 2025. So you've heard about the stabilization center. I say over there, our folks are going to go to the stabilization center in Poughkeepsie. We did allocate $2.5 million in ARPA funding for one in Putnam. It's still not worked out, and we need that money contracted by the end of the year. So I have been advocating to send that $2.5 million to those agencies and resources that are doing the work of mental health and addiction and recovery services and education, like the Prevention Council, the Hub, Cove Care. We'll see. I can't see that they're going to have a contract signed for the stabilization center by the end of this year. It needs to happen. They have to go through, Carmel town planning and everything, as we know how long these things take. So I'm skeptical about it. They really want it. They really need it over there. I will vote in favor of it because I believe in it. I believe in those resources. But I think those monies should be allocated elsewhere at this point, this late stage in the game. Anybody have any questions for me? Sorry if that took too long.
One point I wanted to make, the 100,000 coming from Dana Levenberg, I know they're anxious to get the playground completed, but from our conversation that day, there was a whole list of things, including the roofs on the buildings, that I think would probably take priority over the playground. So I know that the town will have to lay the money out, would be reimbursed our share, whatever our share of is to Continental Village Park District, but there's going to have to be a discussion at some point, and I really appreciate Fred Romer taking the reins and really pushing this. He's really advocating for the Park District, and there's been playground talk for. I just want to make sure that we're prioritizing those funds to, of course, we'd all love a playground, but if the roof's leaking on the building and needs replacement, that would be my priority.
That'll be something you'll work
Right,
out with
I'm just saying that I don't want people to hear there's 100,000 for the playground. If there's a leaking roof, in my eyes, that would be a priority over the playground.
So it's not clear to me whether or not that crest money would be allocated for a leaky roof. My understanding was
Right,
be
I'm
allocated
just not
for-
sure where, and I know her commitment was up to 100,000, and that's, I don't know if that's a guarantee that it's provided.
Well,
know
I
it-
just want to be grateful for
I
something
am
she
too,
offered.
I am
It's
too.
just
I
like,
am, I am
just-
thrilled, and.
It's really exciting that the Assemblywoman attended 2 meetings and made an
Right.
offer on the table.
I am excited as well, but I don't want people in Continental Village to think that 100,000 is going to the
No,
playground.
we were very clear at that meeting, saying this takes a really long time, the town has to spend the money, they probably have to go out to bond, and then it takes a long time for them. We were very clear.
Right,
So,
but the priority, there are other priorities, which I'm not saying the roof needs imminent repair, I don't know. But he did bring up the roofs on 3 facilities as well as a number of other things.
well, then we should get clarification
Yeah,
from the
we will.
Assemblywoman whether or not that funding could be used for
Whether it could be
that.
channeled to anything
Yeah,
within the park.
yeah. I'll advocate for the playground. The Park District is
Right.
more, a town thing, so.
Right, thank you, and thank you for your work, appreciate it. Anything else? Yes?
Dinky Romilly. I just wanted to say that I was thrilled to see so many people attending the meeting today. I think they get a chance to see, I wish they would have stayed because they need to see what it is that this group actually does, what it does for this community, and for people to have been given an opportunity to express their views about the Fjord Trail and hear the questions and comments from the board was very exciting. And I just want to thank you all for the incredible job that you do for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Vacancies. We have one for the Board of Assessment Review and one on the Conservation Board. 2 great groups if you'd like to get involved. We have advertised, Tara, correct?
We'll do it again.
Have we got any response?
Well, the Conservation Board, the vacancy isn't vacant yet. We've been notified that someone's going to be
Okay, well, that's good.
leaving the board so we're just trying to get ahead of it, which
Oh, that's good.
looks like is good
Yeah.
things.
Approval of vouchers, general.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Highway. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And I vote aye. Continental Village Park District.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Continental Village Water District.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, sorry, I forgot that. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Thank you.